All right, today we're tackling the big one, the ultimate career goal, retirement. But what if I told you that the dream we've all been sold might actually be a trap? We're going to dig into some really shocking data and explore a much better, much healthier goal to aim for instead.
Really let that question sink in for a second. For decades, the playbook has been pretty simple, right? You work for 40-some-odd years, you save up, and then you just stop. But what if that finish line we're all running towards isn't the paradise we imagine? What if it's actually a pitfall?
So let's just dive right into the deep end here and talk about the deadly downside. Because honestly, when you start looking at the actual numbers, that dream of an early retirement starts to look a whole lot more like a nightmare.
And when I say deadly, I mean that quite literally. You hear about the FIRE movement all the time. That's financial independence, retire early. And it's all about celebrating leaving the workforce as soon as you possibly can. But it turns out there's a hidden cost that almost nobody talks about.
Look, this isn't just some vague theory or a hunch. Researchers have been tracking the hard data on what actually happens to people when they stop working. And the results are, well, they're frankly pretty alarming.
This one number right here, this is the whole story. This represents the approximate jump in mortality risk for someone who retires at age 55 compared to someone who keeps working until 65. Let me say that again because it's wild. Retiring just 10 years earlier is linked to nearly doubling your risk of dying.
And this chart just lays it all out, plain as day. Over on the left, you've got the baseline risk for someone who works until 65. And then on the right, wow, that giant spike is what happens when you hang it up just a decade sooner. It really seems like slamming the brakes on your career can be quite literally toxic for you.
So, yeah, what is going on here? This is the million-dollar question. If it's not about the money, then what is it? Well, it's about something much, much deeper. It's about these essential needs that our work fulfills. Needs we don't even realize we have until, suddenly, they're gone. And that brings us to this idea of work's 5 hidden needs. It turns out that your job is giving you so much more than just a paycheck. It's actually serving 5 critical psychological functions in your life.
Just think of these as the invisible benefits of having a job. They're like the scaffolding that holds up a huge part of our mental and emotional well-being, and honestly, most of us are completely unaware it's even there.
Okay, so here they are, the big 5. First, you've got structure. Your job gives your days and weeks a rhythm. Second is identity. It's often a huge part of how we introduce ourselves. Third, social connection. It gives you a built-in community. Fourth, purpose, that feeling that you're contributing to something bigger. And finally, number 5 is challenge. It keeps your mind active and engaged. And that, right there, is the retirement trap. When you walk out of the office on your last day, you're not just losing a salary. You risk losing all 5 of these essential supports all at once, overnight. And it's that sudden, massive void that those scary mortality statistics are really pointing to. Okay, so if traditional retirement is a trap, how do we get out of it? Well, we need a better goal. The new goal isn't about stopping work altogether. It's about getting to a point where work becomes a choice. It's about shifting our whole focus from retirement to financial independence. Just look at the mindset shift on this slide. The old goal, retirement, it's all negative, right? It's focused on an end date, on when you get to stop working. But the new goal, financial independence, is totally positive. It's about hitting a freedom number. That's the point where your investments can cover your living expenses. And suddenly, you have the freedom to choose the work you do. This is what real freedom actually looks like. It means you can keep all those amazing psychological benefits of work, the structure, the purpose, the connections. But you do it completely on your own terms. You could consult, start that passion project you've always dreamed of, volunteer, mentor someone. You don't have to stop. You just get to choose. So this all leads us to our final and maybe most important point. We have to redefine the finish line. It's time to completely rethink what we're all aiming for with our lives and, with our money. If you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this quote right here. The goal isn't to stop. The goal is to be free. Stopping is fragile. It leaves that dangerous void we talked about. But freedom is creative. It empowers you to build a life where you're engaged and contributing, but in a way that you design. And that is the ultimate shift in thinking. Instead of grinding away at a job you can't stand just so you can escape one day, the real focus should be on creating a life that's so full of meaningful work and activities that you wouldn't want to retire from it even if you could. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on.
If you hit your freedom number tomorrow and you no longer had to work for a paycheck, what would you do with your time? Seriously, because whatever your answer is, that's the first step toward building a life you'll never want to retire from.